Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. Welcome to another episode of our Darlington podcast, hosted by myself, Baba Rahim, and my esteemed co-host, as always, Maulana Sajid, Imam of Masjid al-Umar for many, many years, head of the Paradise Academy, helping the next generation of the Muslim youth in Darlington and the surrounding areas, and avid volunteer at our Darlington. So today we have with us Dr. Mannan and Dr. Khan, who are going to talk to us about the work they do at an organization that they are directors of, medical directors of an organization called Blue Peanut Medical Education. And that kind of leads me into a question in itself. What's with the name Blue Peanut? Where did that come from? And what's some of the work that you guys do?
Assalamualaikum, Babar. I'll quickly answer that question, then I'll let Imran come in. When we started off this venture, myself and Imran, I remember we were sat in our house, in my house actually, in Rottenstall, and we were struggling to find a name, something catchy, something that people will be memorable. And at the time, Imran, remember we were eating pistachio?
Yeah.
We were looking away at pistachio, and we thought, right, okay, they looked a bit bluey. I think they were a bit off. Imran's never been the same since then. So we just called it Blue Peanuts after that, basically. That's the honest truth.
Oh wow, what a way to come up with a name. And it is memorable because when Mullah Saab sent me through the organization name, I was like,
Yeah.
wow, I hope there's a story behind that because it's a memorable name, right? MashaAllah.
Yeah.
MashaAllah. Very good. So,
See, Baba, also Rottenstall guys, we don't do anything just simply, where we use our brains, we ponder about these things. Not like you brought it to guys. They're 3 against 1 today.
Yeah.
Mullah Saab, this is why you bought
I'm a
your
red rose
friends
pepper
on
today.
to back you up against you feeling bullied. And now you bought your friends on to back you up and
That's it.
honor me. Mullah Saab was
Really,
not back down like that though, Mullah Saab. You gotta try harder than that. So one thing I want to ask you, doctor, is what is it that you do? So we know the name of the organization, but what's the crux of the organization? What does Blue Peanut do?
So do you want me to answer that, or Imran, do you want to do that?
Yes, basically, Blue Peanut. We set this up with the express aim of helping students get into medical school and dental school. So when me and Abdul were at Baker and Rottenstall Grammar School, we thought about what support was available to help sixth form students that were going through the process. We thought, apart from a few books that we ordered from somewhere, from the local bookshop in Rottenstall, there wasn't really very much available to kind of guide us through the process. Yes, there was some careers advisors in the school, which gave us some help. They set up some interviews for us, some mock interviews. They gave us some guidance on how to complete our UCAS application forms, but there wasn't anything really specific for medics and dentists around. So then we thought, well, actually, as time's gone on, getting into medicine and dentistry has got much more competitive. In the past, it could be, well, if you've got good grades, yeah, that's it, more or less. If you've got good grades. My interview at University of Manchester was just a chat. It wasn't anything particularly formal. They started asking me about the Arndale Centre, and you won't get anything like that nowadays. They started asking me more about the city, and and then they said, well, obviously you want to come here. It's like, but nowadays the assessments are much more formal. They're more like an examination rather than an interview. Yeah. So people can be prepared for these. Yeah. A lot of students still have the misconceptions that you don't need to prepare for interviews. It's just a little bit of a chat. So what we've done is we do research every year on what medical schools want from their applicants. So there's a few ways we can do that. We have feedback from previous students. We look at the university websites, and then we try and arrange courses and training to help students who want to kind of go for these assessments, and that hopefully, inshallah, improves their chances of getting offers.
MashaAllah. So so you mentioned there about you were in sixth form and you were looking around for what was around. So what made you guys actually decide, actually, I want to become a doctor? What was your kind of thought process? When did it click for you guys? And just before you answer that, can I just say to the people watching, by all means, so we have two GPs here, and it's not often that we have access to GPs. So ask your questions in the comments. Don't ask medical questions, please. Don't ask me, I've got this and so none of that stuff, because we're not going to go into that. But about the topic about how to become a dentist, how to become a doctor, not what ailments you got and how to fix them, because that's not the place. So by all means, ask away in the questions, and we'll try our best answering them. But yeah, what point in your educational career did you think, actually, you know what, I want to become a GP? Because you're both general practitioners, right? Both GPs.
Yeah. I can't speak for Imran. I can certainly speak for myself in that back in the days growing up, I mean, Mannan and Sab will relate to this. I mean, our life was, we went to school, after school, we went to madrasa, we kind of played in the streets after that, and until it went dark, then we came home. That's pretty much kind of most of how youngsters grew up in our generation. I can't remember personally having any formal chats with my parents, or for that matter, my mum and dad, or brothers and sisters, or teachers, anybody really saying, right, let's have a chat about your career. Where where do you want to end up? What are your ambitions? What are you good at? What are you not so good at? I don't remember any of these discussions. I think career service was quite a premature concept back at school in my time. I think the only reason I ended up doing medicine is because alhamdulillah, I managed to do well in every subject I studied. And it was just one of those things. A lot of the brighter students at school ended up doing medicine, law, or dentistry, something like that. I followed the crowd. I went into medicine. That was the honest truth behind why I've ended up as a doctor. I don't know what your story is, Imran.
Yeah, I think with myself, you start thinking, well, look, what I'm going to do, what am I going to do with my life? How am I going to provide for my family? These kind of things pop through your head, and you look at the hardship that our parents went through, doing late nights on the buses and weekends, and you think, well, look, there must be a better way than this. So that's where it all started. And then actually, me and Abdul were quite good at sciences at school, both for GCSEs and for A levels, and that kind of pinned the foundation of what you could do at university. Plus, we had we knew our local GPs in the community at the time. The other thing was that this career seemed to be quite secure in terms of, well, there's always going to be a need for doctors. And the other advantage, I thought, well, look, you could even get a job locally. Some of my friends, who did other careers have had to, for example, you could get a job. I mean, Haslingden. How many jobs can you get in Haslingden with a degree? It's you can get a job local to home. You can also get a job in your own community. Before I was working in Haslingden, I was working in Nelson. Almost all my patients were from the Muslim community there. Where can you get a job like that? Quite often you end up with a job where you're sitting in an office in the middle of central Manchester. But this is a career, general practice is a career where literally you can work anywhere. You can work Accrington, Bacup, Rawtenstall, Edenfield, and there's always going to be a need for general practitioners. So I thought, well, look, I can get the entry requirements. We're good academically. Alhamdulillah, we managed to get through our 5 years at medical school. But that was my kind of main kind of incentive, that one day I could end up back in the community where I lived, and you can carry on here.
We've got two doctors talking about Rawtenstall and Haslingden and Bacup, and we're talking to an audience, especially Babar, Iyasaiya, thinking, what are these little towns that these are talking about? So let's just let the audience know, mashallah, we're from a small town between Burnley, Manchester. We're a small little town that, mashallah, small Asian community in the heart of the Valley of Rossendale. And mashallah, we all grew up together. Me, Abdul Mannan, Imran himself. Me and Imran were on the same street. We were living at number 2 Peter Street, and I think Imran number 11. Was it?
I think it was number 12 or 10.
You don't remember?
Yeah, I was on the same side as you.
Yeah. And So mashallah, his father was a bus driver, my father was a bus driver, and a lot of the times you get Asian parents that, especially when we were growing up, the only occupation that you knew is you have to become a doctor. Otherwise, there was nothing else. Otherwise, you're a reject. And so, mashallah, these two guys, they've gone on to become doctors, and it's nice to see that, mashallah, they're doing a lot of work in Rotterdam. And I think today is that day to let people know on how to take that journey. Today, I went to a dawat after Zohar, and one of my students, one of our first students at Masjid Umar, who became Hafiz, Atif, his name is, he graduated as a doctor, but he went to Czechoslovakia, and I think he was in 5 years or 6 years there. And so today at his home, we had a little celebration too, and he called myself and a few other people. And the thing is, and I met some of his other friends, and people are going to Bulgaria, people are going to other countries, and to become, especially in the field of medicine. So today, I think we need to know, why are people going abroad, and why can't people choose this path here in the UK, and what guidance can you guys give, especially if people want to go into medicine, and is there a real a need for it? Alhamdulillah, I think whenever you go into hospitals or doctors, you always see a Mr. Khan, Dr. Khan. You might not get too many Dr. Mannans, but you get a lot of Dr. Khans. And so, mashallah, it's nice to see the Muslim community, the Asian community doing well. When you go into hospitals, you'll always see Asian doctors. And I think also, if you can also highlight, as well as doctors, I think in the hospitals, there are other occupations that you can choose. You might not be as educated. I remember working with the hospital a few years ago here in Bradford, and they wanted to open up the hospital to the wider community, especially here in Girlington, so people can have other opportunities like a porter, like working as a secretary at the hospital. There's other roles and responsibilities that people can, if you can't become a doctor, there's other parts inside the hospital, inside the medicine profession. So I think today is the day of highlighting this to our community. And yeah, I think I'm talking too much, Baba.
No, Martha, I want to ask you a specific question. So we're talking about becoming a medical profession. So in Islam, is there anything like, so what's the advantages in Islam? If we're going to guide someone to say, I think you're clever enough to become a medical professional. It's good for education, good for remuneration. It's good for the community. Is it good in Islam? What some benefits?
First of all, Alhamdulillah, Allah Ta'ala is the one that created us all, and I think the more you go into science, the more you become a doctor, you become fascinated of this body, of the the mechanism of this body, and how robust Allah Ta'ala made it, and how great it is. And you see the signs of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. And throughout history of Islam, Muslims, have been pioneers, especially in the field of medicine. I'm sure these two doctors can testify. And if you see the history of Spain, and when Muslims came all the way, when the golden generation, Muslims were pioneers. And a lot of the famous doctors were from the Muslim world, and they invented a lot of the instruments that they utilize today in the hospitals. So Muslims are always inspired. Khairun nasi anfa'um linnas, the Prophet said, the best person is the one that benefits people, and the best form of earning is to earn with your own hands. So people, for our community, needs to have aspirations, and to become leaders of their communities, and to become in professions where they are helping the community. And alhamdulillah, as a doctor, as a teacher, as professionals in their field, it's good to see that they're Muslims, and they've got their dunyawi degree with them as well. And when you have that, nobody can beat you in mashallah. You've got success of dunya, and if you got your deen as well with you, you've got success of your akhirat as well. And as a Muslim, we always hold on to our deen. Deen is part of our life. And alhamdulillah, if you've worked well in this dunya, and you've got a good profession, alhamdulillah, let's give the best of both worlds. And definitely we should aspire to be the best, and to help our communities. And mashallah, and we've always seen doctors, and now in the front line with mashallah, Muslim doctors are there, every day, helping others. So yeah, Muslims should always be helping others, and we should always aim for the best careers.
So, Dr. Khan, I want to ask you. So, let's say that there's a child and he's So, Dr. Khan, I was just going to ask you really quickly around.
Baba, your line is quite poor.
Is it?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you, brother.
Okay, so I want to ask, what would be, so if someone wanted to decide what would they want to become a doctor, and they decided it, let's say they get to the age of 14, 15, and they're deciding GCSEs.
Yeah.
What would you advise them? What GCSEs to pick? And what would their interest have to be to start going along that line of becoming a doctor?
Right. Okay. So yeah, that's usually right at the very beginning. You can look at the entry requirements that the medical schools ask for. Now, obviously, they change over the years, but as time goes on, unfortunately, they are getting higher and they're getting more stringent. So most universities they usually ask for a specific grade in English language, maths, and science. Yeah, there's usually a grade A or a 7 by the new standards, or a B or a 6. Yeah, most of them just tell you, well, we just need a good set of GCSE grades, yeah? And they leave it quite vague like that. But usually the minimum requirement is 5 GCSEs at grade A or grade B, or a 7 or 6, yeah, including the core subjects. Now, if you don't have grades as good as that, it's not basically the end. You just have to be a bit more picky about which universities you apply for, because some of them have higher entry requirements than others. The other thing is there's something called widening participation, which is basically a scheme that is nationwide, where the government's trying to increase diversity, in people applying to medical school. So traditionally, medical profession was for people that were perhaps considered more affluent, that had gone to public schools, and the government's trying to change that, because what's happening is these individuals are going through medical school, coming out, and then having to work in communities that aren't kind of in line with what they're experienced with. Yeah. So the government wants people that are working in, students from areas that are a bit more deprived, going and becoming medicine, so that when they come out, they can look after patients, from the same background. So if you come from one of these areas, then your GCSE entry requirements might be a little bit less. So I would say, in terms of GCSEs, everybody does the sciences and English. But bear in mind, what I said before, these are minimum requirements. You'll be competing against other students that have grades that are much higher than this. Yeah. So all I would say is inshallah, just get the highest grades you can.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Imran raises a very important point with the freedom of information that we request from universities. It's quite obvious that you need very high grades. So whilst, yes, 6s and 7s might be adequate, we really say go for your 8s and 9s, go for the high grades, and as many as you can, especially in your core subjects like English, maths, and sciences, because you will be competing with a lot of the candidates who have got very high grades.
Okay, gotcha. And so let's say that we get through the education system and we're applying for medical school. Okay. So what are some of the stuff that you guys help with when we're applying for medical school? So we've gone through our GCSEs, and I believe the same kind of thing is going to be for same sort of advices for your A level. Kind of get as high as you can, get the sciences. That's sort of advice for A levels.
Yeah, I mean, with the A levels, it's a bit more specific in that once you've got your GCSE results and they're very high order and they're very good, it's important to really think about your A levels. First of all, don't overdo it. Don't go for 5 or 4 subjects when each subject is quite in depth and it's quite involved. So even if it means doing 3 subjects, then stick to 3 and do them well. So don't go for quantity, go for quality. Number 2, most universities in the UK, they require chemistry as an A-level subject. for medicine. So you must include chemistry in your choice. Second to that, very close second, would be biology. That's not requested by all universities, but it's a good preferable second subject. And in fact, for those people who don't do chemistry for whatever reason, you must almost definitely you need to consider biology as a replacement subject. And then, of course, another science or math or art subject or something to top it up. And again, in terms of grades, you need high grades, really. I would say you need at least A's or A stars you need to aim for. Some universities will let you in with 2 A's and a B, but really we would encourage our students to go for all A's.
That's really interesting. I would have thought biology would have been kind of the primary and then chemistry and science, but you're saying it's the other way around. Chemistry is the primary and then biology is the secondary subject, right?
That's correct. That's correct. It's chemistry that's the core subject. It's interesting because you'd think it would be biology, but actually what you find is the applications and the curriculum that chemistry exposes you to, it's quite vital in the field of medicine because, you know, medicine isn't just a biological thing. It's also, there's a lot of processes to learn about. There's a lot of, you know, biochemistry. There's a lot of pathology. There's a lot of chemistry involved in what we learn day to day.
Oh, that makes sense. So we've talked about GCSEs and we talked about A levels. So now you've got your A level results. You've that nerve-wracking day. You've opened your envelope. You've got it. And let's say you've got your results and you're going to med school. So what would be your advice to that student who's just gone into med school and his first couple of years in med school? What would be your guide? So one thing I want to ask is Blue Peanut, is this a good time to start engaging with you guys, or is it later in the cycle that you would engage with a company like yourself?
These days we're engaging with our students and our parents as early as possible. It's important to start thinking about it. If you are going to think about medicine and dentistry, start to think about it around about the GCSE year. We start to take on our students as soon as they're in year 12, when they are doing their A levels, the first year of A levels. And at that stage, we kind of advise them, we mentor them about how to go about things. They can come on our courses, for example, doing UCAT courses, preparation for their personal statements. We help out with that. We help out with preparing for the interviews. So there's quite a few vital steps that we get involved with. And with the earlier years, I mentioned, the reason why we get involved early is because there's a certain amount of discipline students need to understand about work ethics, the subjects and how to work and do work experience, extracurricular activities, things like that, which are important as well in the application process. So it's the whole culture of getting into medical and dental school that we need to work on early, and we try to get that message across to our parents and the students alike.
So Mannan, you know, the seminar that you hold, so what do you focus on? Is it just a career path, or are you along with, you guide them all the way through or to university? How does it work?
Yeah, so we do a number of what we do is as an organization, we get involved with students, their parents, and also through schools and colleges at different stages. So in the lower school, for example, me and Imran, we visit schools. We speak to year 8, we speak to year 10 students, so younger students who have barely started their GCSEs or even haven't started yet. So what we try to go in there and is talk about barriers and actually motivational issues, because one of the issues we find is that parents and young people think medicine is something they can't access easily. You know, it's really lofty. My goodness, how am I going to become a doctor? So many years. There's a lot of things that get in the way. So we try to break down those barriers and say, look, take us as examples. Maulana Sahab, you know very well my background, Imran's background. You know, actually, we come from very humble, very normal backgrounds. And actually, for people like ourselves to have ambitions about medicine, dentistry, and other professions, it's actually nothing to be scared of. That's what we're trying to get across to the younger generations and say that, look, aim high, have ambition, whatever you want to do. You know, inshallah, you'll help yourself. Allah will help you, your parents, your family, and everybody. You know, it's, you know, the thing that really we need to get across to our young people is the can-do attitude. Actually, there's so many clever young people in our communities, and they can do literally anything. if they apply themselves. And we try to get that across to them. At the later stages, helping out.
Encourage you guys to go into the. They encourage you guys to go into the mosques and I don't know, speak to the committee members and possibly have a day where showcase what you guys do, and
we welcome
going to schools.
No, we'd welcome all this, Monsab. We have engaged with masjids and madrasas, and the more we can engage, the better, really. So, if there's anybody listening or yourselves, you've got contact with schools, colleges, madrasas, masjids, but it's only a case of lifting the phone and talking to us, and we will make time.
Dr. Khan, I have a question, right? So, and this is slightly outside the flow of where we're going, but it's a question I really want to pose to you. So, to do a profession is one thing, right? So, to go to work and to do the profession is one thing, but then to take time out to teach others, there must be some real burning passion and desire to influence others to get to somewhere. So, what made you in that conversation you're talking about, where you were sat in that living room, sat in your living room, and you're eating them nuts, and you're having that conversation? What sparked it? What made you think, actually, you know what, we need to help others? What was that burning desire? Because listening to you brothers speak, there's obviously a lot of passion there, and there's a lot of desire that you want to help people. So where did that come from?
Well, we've been.
Rotten stone.
The thing is, it's all about education, isn't it? Since I qualified, I got involved in medical education to some extent. So once you started your your training, which I did at Burnley General Hospital, just down the road from Rawtenstall, there's opportunities there to talk to medical students, and there was the odd sixth form student there as well. So that got you kind of involved in teaching, and as we kind of progressed and as we got more qualified, we started doing that more formally. So, for example, in our practice, there's medical students there from University of Central Lancashire, University of Manchester. So we look after all years of medical school. We also have junior doctors there. We have doctors that are training to be a GP. And they have a very specific curriculum, and they've got exams to pass. So we train them in the practice. So this kind of came as a natural progression. Well, if we're training junior doctors, we're training medical students, then perhaps we should start kind of training a little bit earlier. So then we go into, well, why don't we train sixth form students? We have sixth form students now doing work experience in our practice. And that's when we kind of expanded, the medical education side of things, and said, well, look, let's go the whole hog. Let's start off from GCSE and A level, because this is all about teaching students the skills that they need to apply to medical school. Now every school will have certain activities for them. Now these are actually getting better as time's going on. So, we ask students, well, have you organized anything at school? Have you done any fundraisers? Because universities are looking for evidence of leadership nowadays in their application. So, have you been a school ambassador? Have you been a head boy or a head girl? Now, when me and Abdul were at school, we were a bit hesitant to do these things. We always thought this was like just a waste of time, but they're very, very important. And we encourage our children to kind of get involved in these things. And, if these things aren't available in your school, set them up. So basically, I think in summary, we've always been into medical education right from when we qualified. And this is just a natural extension of what we've been doing for a very long time.
So I have a question coming back to the medical profession a little bit. So, and it's more personal now in the current environment. So we always hear about the educational needs of become a doctor and the high level of intellect. But there's another side to it which I don't think spoken about as often, and that's the character and the emotional side of it. Because in essence, every day you're dealing with people's hardships that you're trying to fix. Now, sometimes you'll get to a point where you can help them on a better way of life. But inevitably, when you're in that situation, there's going to be the other side, right? Where you come across a situation where you can't help it. It's beyond help. So what are some of the mental difficulties and characteristics of becoming a doctor that you're gonna need, and some of the mental hardships that you guys face on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis?
Yeah,
I mean, medicine.
yeah,
Sorry, Imran, you go ahead. Go ahead, Imran.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to suggest that. Crash, you go, Imran.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So apart from the academic side, yeah, that they're looking for, the medical schools are looking for some of the early signs of some of the qualities that doctors have. So you mentioned something about dealing with patients that you can't treat. So it's not just the scientific side, but then you've got the caring side as well. So there are some patients where they're terminally ill and you're not going to be able to treat them, and then you're going to have to be able to talk with them, deal with them in a way that kind of comforts them. So you've got to have quite good communication skills, and you've got to have the ability to show empathy. Now, some students will have developed that during school. So, for example, they might have worked in a nursing home, or they might have worked in a hospice. So basically, you need to develop some of these skills that are going to be useful to you one day as a doctor. So things like we take for granted, you've got to be honest. Yeah? You've got to be honest, and you've got to show integrity. You've got to take responsibility for your own actions. You've got to be able to go at problem solving. Now, obviously, not every student is going to have the ability to demonstrate these at a young age. But as I mentioned previously, try and get involved in your the societies in your school. Try and become a form prefect. Because then you can say to the medical school, well, actually, I was a form prefect, and they put me in charge of doing this, this, and this, and I organized it in this way. So that's an example of leadership, and that's something that the medical schools are going to be looking for. You talked about looking at patients that were distressed. There's something called breaking bad news that we teach on our interview courses, because quite often they'll give you an interview where it won't be somebody who's just passed away or to that level, but it may be somebody who's perhaps just got a phone call from their dad saying that he's in hospital and they're very distressed and they want you to talk to them. Now, so these are kind of skills that can be taught and that we teach on our interview course. So basically, they're looking for the budding signs of the qualities of a doctor.
And
yeah,
I'm gonna ask you the same question, because you seem like you want to come in, but that seems like very sound advice for any career, to get involved with stuff early, to try setting stuff up in your school and stuff. So it's very good advice for doctor, but it almost seems like it's more generic advice about getting involved and setting stuff up, right? But Dr. Mannan, you were gonna mention something there. What were you gonna say?
I mean, look, what I was going to say was two things based on your two questions you asked earlier on. First of all, when it comes to the point where you can't so-called help somebody with, say, medicine or an operation or say saving their life, I would say there's still hope, and there is still something you can do, and that's you being a human being. In that we can give people comfort, we can put like in literal sense, say, the arm around a person, or the shoulder for somebody to cry on, So I would kind of say it's very similar to having a relationship that you would have with somebody that cares for you. Say if you got you weren't feeling right, you'd go to your mom or your father or your brother or whoever you talk to for a bit of comfort and a bit of solace. So being a doctor is not just about giving out tablets. It's not just about doing an operation. It's more than that. It's being there. It's being as a hope to somebody. It's being there as a confidant, somebody that you can go to and talk to in confidence, in privacy, exchange a few words and get a bit of advice from. This is a kind of a role that I suppose a doctor ends up playing, and for that matter, anybody in the healthcare profession can end up doing. So it's more than just providing medicine. It's providing medicine of the heart. It's providing medicine of the mind. So these are the things that we try to train our medical students and junior doctors to incorporate into their medicine giving, or into their kind of, so that you're not just, it's not about money or giving out prescriptions. There's more to medicine. and we make sure we tell our students that, look, if you're really interested in, say, just making money, then frankly, go into other professions where you would maybe do better. Medicine is not for you. Medicine is, it's more than that. It just so happens to be in a country like UK, and in fact, many countries in the world, where you don't do too badly financially from within the medicine field or dentistry field. But the main aim of people coming into medicine has to be that you're there for mankind, not for any creed, color, gender, or religion or anything. You're there to serve mankind, and that's the ultimate objective behind becoming a doctor. So that's just something I wanted to throw in there.
That's a really good insight. And one thing that, so I have a doctor friend that you mentioned, and I want you to put this to you guys as well. So, you know, like I go to the doctors and I spend 10 minutes in the doctor's surgery. So from the outside perspective, it almost looks like, so he's dealt with me for 10 minutes. But, and so this is something for you guys to confirm, there could be a whole host of, like, okay, so I've seen him and I've given him this drug, and then I got to go away and check his treatment plan. There could be an hour of research that's gone on behind the scenes that I don't see. What it looks like for 10 minutes to me could be like an hour, and there's extra. It's not just the doctor's working from 9 to 5. He's working way beyond that. And there's other things like career development. So what happens once you qualify? You go through your university, you got your placement, you become a GP. What's the study like beyond that? Are you continuously studying? Is it kind of I'll get an update, I'll read a newsletter? What's the type of study that you guys have to keep doing? Because medicine's changing, right? A good example at the moment is COVID.
Yeah, so I think when me and Imran were at Manchester, I remember one of our professors, who Imran might remember very, fondly, Professor Foster, who kind of met us in the big theatre, the lecture theatre. And I remember this one thing he said to us right at the beginning, and he said this, guys, that look, this is the beginning of learning medicine, this lecture theatre. You will be learning for the rest of your life. Every doctor, every dentist, every medic out there is learning on a daily basis. The reason is, and statistically, actually, every 3 or 4 years, a typical medic will lose about 30% of his knowledge base. Not because he forgets, it's because things are changing so much. So I don't know, look at how we manage hypertension, high blood pressure. In my career, in Imran's career time of the last, say, 15, 16 years, the management of high blood pressure has changed about 4 times. So can you see, if Imran and myself, if we stuck to the learning we had from medical school days, that knowledge would be out of date, right? So whilst the heart doesn't change, or the body doesn't change, what's changing is we're learning something new about the body every day. We're learning something new about new medicines and new pathways and new guidelines on a daily basis. So if you don't keep your learning up, you're going to become out of date, and you're going to become not so good in your profession.
Wow. So, Dr. Imran, a question for you that it's always linked really closely to the becoming a doctor, and it's the contention of blood, right? So most people at the sight of blood either pass out or freak out. Yeah. So do you have to be good around blood, and do you handle it like on a daily basis or anything like that? So do you have to be good around blood to become a doctor?
Well, let's go back to the beginning. When I was at medical school, in the first and second year, we do dissection. Yeah, we do dissection. Where you kind of have to, cut up, kind of dead kind of corpses, basically, to learn anatomy. I mean, things are getting on now. I mean, now we've got computer models and things like that. So we tend to move away from things like that. And the other thing you could do was go into the pathology lab, and they do postmortems there. Yeah. So obviously you're being exposed to surgical procedures. And then the third bit is obviously you're watching an operation. Yeah. So an operation on a live person, that's another way you can learn anatomy. Now, yes, some students will, the first time they see that is at medical school, and they pass out or they faint, or that hasn't happened to me. Because my view was, look, this is my career. I'm going to have to know this. Yeah. So, but there are people that actually passed out the first time they saw blood, or they saw a dissection, or they even saw, somebody even sinking a scalpel into some tissue. But ultimately, that's something that you're going to have to get used to it, because it's part of your profession. So the first time or two, somebody might kind of have an adverse reaction, but they soon get accustomed to it. And in terms of blood, general practice, I mean, there's not really. I mean, there's some minor surgery that we do, so you are exposed to blood, but it's just part and part of practice. Blood is just.
The good thing is, if you weren't very good with blood, at least you've got lots of career options within medicine. So if you don't like blood, do specialities where you don't have to see as much blood. General practice is one of them. There are others. You can choose to do lots of specialities where you don't have to see any blood on a daily basis.
So I was going to ask that question. So on your website, you mentioned kind of general practitioners, and you mentioned dentists. But do you also help with stuff like optometry and other professions, or do you specialize in them to becoming a general practitioner and becoming a dentist?
Well, it's important to stick to what you're good at, isn't it? We know a lot about how to become a doctor. We know a lot about how to become a dentist. And so that's why we've chosen to stick to what we know best. The reality is we don't know as much about becoming an optometrist, or perhaps becoming a nurse, or perhaps becoming a paramedic. So for that reason, it's best to go to and get guidance from people who know that profession well. So for us, it's a lot of work, as it is with aspiring doctors and dentists, and we choose to focus on those two professions. And actually, we also do some work with vet doctors, people who doctors who work with animals. So we've stuck to those professions really because we know more about these.
Go on, Martha.
So sorry, Doctor, how come, like I mentioned earlier, how come a lot of our students tend to go abroad? Is it cheaper, or what?
So going abroad, there's multiple reasons as to why people can go abroad. First of all, as you know, there are limited places available in the UK. Also, the requirement to get into a UK university is quite high. You have to jump through a lot of hoops, high academic requirements, etc., etc. Now, you might get students who don't get into a UK university for whatever reason. It might be because they didn't do so well at the interview on that day. It might be they missed out on a grade slightly at A-level or GCSEs for that matter. Remember, kids, young people also mature at different times of their life. Not everybody attains good GCSEs, but actually they would make fantastic doctors and dentists. It's just that they matured at a later, a year or two later in their life. So what do? Do we discount those people, or should they be given opportunities? Unfortunately, in the UK, that student might have to resit A-levels and reapply, and they may get in or they may not get in the following year or a few years later. Now that student has now an option. They can go abroad, somewhere in Europe, safe, good universities. Yes, it's a bit cheaper to study over there. Yes, you have to study away from home, so you may not see your family on a regular basis. But with that sacrifice in place, it gives you an option to study dentistry, medicine abroad, and it's there. A lot of people are exercising that option. And yeah, they can come back and practice medicine and dentistry in the UK as well.
When they come back to the UK, do they have the same opportunities with their
I would
degrees?
have thought. We've got a friend. We have friends, don't we, Imran, who have studied in the Czech Republic, in Bulgaria, and Romania, and a few other places. And yeah, they're working as fellow professionals in hospital, in primary care, in general practice. Yeah, not a problem.
Okay.
So, Dr. Khan, if you had a message to the youth about, I know you talked earlier about telling people try to break down barriers, for it's not an elitist profession, and it's not for the most of the academic. What would be your message to the youth to say the medical profession is open for you, especially the youth in the private area like Girlington?
Yeah, as in the past, it used to be considered elitist, especially places like Oxford and Cambridge. They weren't even on the kind of lists of some of our local students. But just think of the communities that we serve. I mean, Rosendale isn't a particularly affluent town. Burnley isn't, and Nelson, they aren't particularly affluent towns, but there are doctors that work there. They tend to also be doctors from our communities that end up in these kind of places. That's been historical for decades. So there's always a need for doctors in these areas. And what I would say to the youth is just don't give up. If you definitely need to work hard. In your GCSEs and A levels, you definitely need to work hard. But if you don't get the place first time, don't give up. There's lots of other ways, other options open to you. As Dr. Mannan has mentioned, there's options for you to go abroad. So the important thing is to get your head down and study for those few years. But again, don't forget the other things in life. Don't forget the extracurricular activities. They're just as important as the academic side of things. Don't forget, the masjid and all the other activities there. Don't just focus on your academia, but maintain a good work-life balance as well.
I think that's the key message that your brothers have been really pushing today about expanding your horizons, right? Go out, become part of the community, help out in school. If there isn't something there that's going to help you, make it yourself. You become the kind of hub to spark stuff. Don't sit back and just accept, oh, I'm not in an area that's got X, Y, and Z. If it's not there, you do it, right?
Yeah. The government's also aware that not every and the medical schools will be aware not every school in every area will have options. Will have these options open to its students, and they take that into account now. As part of their widening participation. So they can actually when you apply to medical school, they look at the postcode that you're from, and they look at the schools that you've applied to, and if those schools fit certain criteria, for example, it's a school that's in a traditionally underperforming area, or your postcode is in a particularly deprived area, then they may be a bit more lenient towards the entry requirements. So then they will understand that, well, this student, because they're from a deprived area, won't be able to have the same level of work experience as somebody else. They may not have all the leadership qualities as somebody in a public school might have. So they are taking these things into account, but I still think you should try and aim to at least do something.
Baba, I think, my point is, I've lost my point. I'll come back.
No problem. I was going to say that if someone wants to get in touch with you, brothers, what would be the best way to get in touch with you?
The best way, you can access us very easily. Actually, we have got a website. You can fill a form, or there's numbers there as well. You can just ring that number. That takes you directly to me or Imran. You've got our Facebook page. You can send a message through our Facebook page. We've got a page on Instagram. You can send a message on our Instagram page. Very easy to access us, and we directly speak to students and the parents, both myself and Imran. So it's very easy to contact us.
And again, so you mentioned it there. So and whilst I was doing some looking up and stuff, one of the big things that you guys kind of focus on is you guys. You don't sublet this to other companies. You don't get somebody else to come in and teach your seminars. It is you guys who turn up if you've been booked, right?
That's correct. This is all our courses are delivered by Imran and myself. We don't, and so it's quite a bespoke offer, really. We don't. It's not a marketing exercise as such for us. It's more about trying to push our communities, the widening participation, the deprived communities, of which, I'm sure you'd agree, a lot of kids from BAME community, Muslim communities fall into those categories. So we find a lot of the beneficiaries are from those communities, and we'd like to continue that effort really in this way.
But Baba, I was going to mention that this is a career path that is not an alien to our community, because mashallah, when we look into this profession, we have a lot of Asian Muslim doctors, so there are good examples in front of us, whereas we've done previous podcasts like football and whatever else, and you don't have many people from the Asian community, Muslim community represented in those fields. But mashallah, in medicine, I think we've got good a good leadership and good doctors at the forefront. So it's a clear path that, mashallah, it's not alien to our community. And I think the first thing every single one of our parents said to us, you've got to become a doctor. When you were young, you had no other option. They said you either become a doctor or, or you were a failure. And so
I did think about the context that I think the context that they were saying at the time, they were going through a lot of hardship. The only jobs available to them was it was, my dad was saying it's quite difficult to get a job as a bus driver. Yeah. And then, to get it in Ronstal, a lot of our parents worked in the mills, and that's the only kind of life that they saw. So obviously they wanted something better for their children.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate, alhamdulillah, my dad was very, very supportive of education. He still is. He was almost insistent that education is one way out of this trap that we're in, where you're just going to be a manual labor for the rest of your life. So he says, look, this is something that we have to do. Our community does have the talent to do this, and they should do. Gone are the days where our community is just about becoming a taxi driver, or being a bus driver, or working in a manual job. Our community as alhamdulillah moved forward over time, and these things there should be no barriers to people from our community wanting to become a doctor and going to these professions.
And I think Imran, that's something we should appreciate, the elders, all of our parents here, that the sacrifices that they made when they came to this country. They helped others, they laid down the foundations where we can have a good education. I think even in this country, we should appreciate the blessings of Allah Ta'ala here, that we can choose a career path and really excel in whatever we want to do in this country. Whereas sometimes you see people around the world, they're stuck and they're limited in whatever they want to choose. But alhamdulillah, we have the opportunities, and I think like Dr. Sab, you just mentioned, we should explore these opportunities, we should excel, and we should now take it forward. And alhamdulillah, seeing you guys and seeing other professionals and seeing people that are from the BIM, the Muslim Asian community excelling, it only brings happiness and joy to us. And alhamdulillah, and I think this is, our parents get happy that alhamdulillah, this is the effort I made and I can see the fruits of it today. So alhamdulillah, it's very good.
So brothers, we're coming up to the 1 hour mark, so we're going to start closing it down. So if you had a final message, Dr. Mannan, what would you say to the community listening out there in terms of the career path of becoming a medical profession?
So first thing I would say to students, to parents, is that actually work to your strengths. Pray to God to guide guide our children. But besides that, make sure we work to our strengths, and that might be within medicine and dentistry, but it could also be other careers. So I wouldn't necessarily just say, yep, you have to do medicine and dentistry. Now, if you do want to consider medicine and dentistry, or if you want your child to consider it, try and do your homework early. Get in there early doors, prepare the path. Let's not think about it right at the end of year 12. We need to think about it around about year 10, so that we can gradually pave the way. It's a marathon, and rather than a race. So early preparation and good hard work really pays off in the end.
MashaAllah. And Dr. Khan, what would you say to the people listening around if they want to come into this profession?
Yeah, as Abdul mentioned, study hard. Do your best at school. You're going to have to go through some challenges. Unfortunately, there are some barriers to overcome in terms of entry requirements, GCSEs, A levels. But they're not out of reach. This is a profession that alhamdulillah is being open to everyone now. You shouldn't consider this as an elitist profession. It's now open to everyone, and don't give up. Keep trying.
MashaAllah. Maulana Sahab, any closing remarks from yourself?
No, just that the Red Rose people from the Red Rose County again are helping and guiding the people from the White Rose. No, mashallah.
See, brother, this is what I do it all the time. Non-stop it. This is not this.
We have to rub into you in it.
All that.
You can take the
You have to
boy
look
out of
into it.
Rochdale.
From a small little town, we've come to guide you and help you. And no, mashallah. No, that's the whole purpose of these podcasts, Babar. Alhamdulillah, when we started a few a few months ago now, the whole purpose is all to get people like Dr. Mannan, Dr. Khan Sahib on board was just to inspire our youth, our next generation. That Alhamdulillah, we're now into third, fourth, fifth generation in this country, and now we need to excel in what we do, and we need to. Alhamdulillah, our parents have really laid down the foundations, but now we need to take it on. Just last week, I was talking to an elder, and he was telling me, he goes that he talked about the sacrifices that they made, and it's amazing to hear the stories and he was saying to me, he goes, unfortunately though, my kids, his kids haven't chosen the right career path. He goes, they can't afford to buy a house. And he goes, look at the sacrifices we made, and unfortunately our kids today, and he was upset. So the thing is, what I'm trying to say, the whole purpose is that we've got to inspire our community, and we've got to realize that alhamdulillah, these are ni'mats. I always keep on stressing to our community that these are blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that in this country we've got the language, we've got the passport, we've got the free education system, we've got everything. And if we don't take this, then tomorrow on the day of Qiyamah, what we're going to say to Allah, what have you done with our youth, or what did we do with our time? So it's very important. Use your time, study now. Yes, it's a few years of hard work, well, inshallah, you'll see the fruit of all your hard work after a few years. Also, is like Dr. Abdul Mannan Sahib and Khan Sahib mentioned, that you're doing it for the sake of serving humanity. That's the first and foremost. And as a Muslim, that's what we're created for, to have mercy on others, to be kind towards others. So we've got to be doing it for that. And then second of all, another is rewarding. I'm sure financially, it's rewarding as well. So you can live a comfortable life in this world, and a Muslim should be comfortable in his living. And again, ni'mas from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So no, alhamdulillah, we should inspire our next generation. And if you need more information, we've got Dr. Mannan Sahib and Dr. Khan Sahib's numbers and all their details. And please ask them, seek guidance from them. And I think even mosques, we need to open up these career paths. So, our next generation, they could come, they can see that the career service. I don't think the career services are left like before, anyway. You'd have a day at school, and I think even a few podcasts nowadays, they don't even bother. So, we need to open up our mosques so that, let these people in to inspire our next generation and to make the right choices, inshallah.
MashaAllah, Jazakallah for that. So I'd like to close down the podcast by first of all thanking our guests. It's been a true honor and such an enlightening experience to have you guys on, and some of the knowledge that we've gained, and the inspiration, and you can really feel the passion from you guys, like how you want to help the community and give back. So mashallah, long may it continue, and I hope you every success in your endeavors going forward. Mashallah. So if I just do some housekeeping. Across the bottom of the screen, the whole session, there's been donation information running. So if you want to do it online, there's a Gofundme page. If you want to go to your own bank and do it that way, then there's a sort code and account number. Jump on your website for your online, for your bank, and you can sort it out that way direct. There's also cash. So if you ring Brother Zulfikar, he can arrange picking up cash even in these using some sort of social distancing and mechanisms that we've developed for that. So by all means, jump on that and try helping us out where we can. The masjid still needs your money. The masjid is still there. We're trying to help the community. So any donation would be really appreciated on that stuff. If you like the content we're putting out, please like and subscribe. It helps us get our rankings up and stuff like that. So please do that. And next week's podcast, we have a very eminent Mufti Zubair Butt Sahib, who's going to help us and try understanding some of the virtues of Zul Hajj and Qurbani. Again, it'll be a live program, so tune in, ask us questions. He's going to be here. Someone with that much knowledge, take as much advantage of it as possible. Sometimes it's difficult to get to Maulana Sahib and Mufti Sahib to ask them questions, but he's going to be here live, answering questions and talking about the topic. So, and it's that time of year as well. So by all means, jump on, ask questions, and we'll put whatever we can to him. Thank you very much, and all I've left to say is Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.